Coogs House. The Houston Cougars line up against the UNLV Rebs this weekend. But I got to ask, how many quarterbacks should they looking to face?
You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs, a podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth, here to break down all things Cougs. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater that came to step by, thank you for making Locked On Coogs your first listen of the day. If you enjoy the conversation but don't know what to say, tell us if you're at the casino, at the roulette table, do you put it all on red or black? Because this week, Houston is playing those UNLV Rebels of Las Vegas. That sounds redundant, but we're going with it. And we're joined by guest Jason Kelly of the Run It Pod to break down those things. So, Jason, I got to ask. I'm not going to ask actually about your gambling background. I was going to say, would you put it on red or black?
Yeah. So yeah, it's. I would say it's a total kind of a toss-up game. But because of the uncertainty around the quarterback position, and when I did my preview for this season, I thought there would be so much instability around our quarterback position that I actually picked the Rebels to lose. So I have in my head, I don't actually gamble. If you live in Vegas and you gamble and you're young, you are in trouble. Yeah, so in my head, I kind of have Houston with the advantage at the moment. But that is barring, if one of our quarterbacks comes in and is the answer and, we can get rid of all the confusion, then I would feel good about the Rebels. But I can't in good conscience make that bet until I feel comfortable with the quarterback position for us.
So I should mention today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, and we will break down a preview of the game and why FanDuel odds are moving in that last segment a little bit. Because I think that tells us a little bit after the depth charts have come out. But you alluded to the biggest news of the day. Monday afternoon, coaches' media press conferences, and they released the depth charts. Houston had a couple of surprises on there, as I'd be happy to get in with you as well. But the big thing to me is the worst part of a depth chart is where it says or. And at the quarterback position for UNLV, it was Malik Williams, Matthew Saluka, and Cameron Friel, each with an or between them. Two different ors in one position group. And so I got to ask, if you were head coach or offense coordinator or just had a say, who do you think it should be?
So the correct answer is Matthew Saluka. That's the right answer. There have been a couple issues with him. He was a late transfer from Holy Cross, and two of these guys are FCS, and the third one, Cameron Friel. So Malik Williams and Matthew Saluka are both FCS quarterbacks, so lesser competition. Cameron Field, the other one actually in the competition, was actually Mountain West Freshman of the Year when he stepped in for an injured quarterback his freshman year. And so he actually has like kind of a pedigree. And it's funny because nobody thinks he's actually any good. I shouldn't say that. There are people in the UNLV program that do. But Matthew Saluka is the correct answer. He's a dynamic runner. He's 6'3". He kind of reminds me of like a very a poverty level Josh Allen. But that's who I would pick. Who I suspect the staff is picking. And again, the staff has made it very clear to all the UNLV media, tight lips, don't say who we're picking, because they have supposedly informed the player who is going to be the primary starter that he is going to be the starter already. So that is something that's going around in UNLV media, but we don't know.
You got Saluka and you've got Malik Williams. Malik Williams is also a runner, a different type of runner, admittedly. And watching Malik at Campbell and Matthew Saluka at Holy Cross, obviously the competition's a lot different. It kind of felt like they almost were like, as far as a passer goes, the inverse of one another. Saluka does a little bit more, running over people, whereas Williams a little bit more running around people. But you feel confident in you think you would pick Saluka. I guess I first want to ask why, and then I'm also going to follow up with, well, why would someone else be picking Williams? So why would Saluka get the nod in your opinion?
Saluka is like a legit talent. So part of the reason why UNLV was able to get Saluka is he had Power 5 offers, but he chose UNLV because he wanted to graduate and finish his collegiate kind of academic career at Holy Cross. And so we were willing to let him skip spring ball and come to Vegas late, which has actually been a total disaster for him because we have kind of a weird Well, we have kind of a weird playbook. We run the go-go offense, Brennan Marion's kind of brainchild. And it's a little odd. You have two running backs lined up on the same side. Sometimes the blocking is weird, and it's very different from what he ran at Holy Cross. So I would still invest in him because I think he's the best talent of everybody, to be honest. He's got a very strong lower body. He can break tackles. He's good. He's got better speed than you think. And he actually has a pretty good arm. Now it's not accurate. It's kind of like, again, Josh Allen has a howitzer for an arm, but the dude overthrows or underthrows everybody, which is why Stephon Diggs is no longer a member of the Buffalo Bills.
A Texan now.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of that's what I would pick. Now, somebody might pick Malik Williams because he was there for spring ball. He was the QB1 in the spring game. He's had a lot more time with the UNLV playbook. And I also think that because of that time that he's had in Vegas, he's a bit more of a natural leader. And so I don't think he's a very good passer, to be honest. I think Matthew Sluka has a better arm. But Malik Williams is very fast. I mean, he might have the second or third best 40 time on the team. I mean, he is ridiculously quick up and down the field. So I would say Williams has the advantage right now. Again, I do talk to people in the program, but they have told me you are not getting any information on this because we do not want to tell Houston anything about who's starting. Which is fair. I mean, that's the way it goes.
So what I'm hearing with that is that it's going to be Friel. You're throwing us on a complete goose chase here.
See, that's the thing is Friel. Friel is like I really wish that either Williams or Sluka was way better than they actually are. And so we're just going to pick Friel because I could see them picking Friel just because Friel is nobody minds throwing Friel under the bus. If we go and lose to Houston and Friel is terrible, nobody's going to have a problem throwing him under the bus. Now, if Williams or Sluka is terrible, they're fifth-year seniors. They were the big recruits. I think there's going to be a little bit more level of discomfort at the top of the program. So I would pick Williams right now, but your guess is literally as good as mine.
Well, talk to me about, because you've seen the coaching staff much more up close and in person at UNLV. Obviously, we're watching some video on YouTube and trying to catch up here as we're doing things in Houston, trying to get ready. Do you think it could be the kind of game where they each get a series to open it up, or they alternate a little bit and then whoever's hot gets the fourth quarter? Or is that too high school amateurish for this? Or is the kind of staff that would be that flexible in a game?
The staff is very good. It's pretty incredible that
Houston wanted some of them. There were people in Houston that wanted them when we were doing a coaching search last time. I mean, a lot of respect in Houston for the UNLV staff.
Well, it's kind of bizarre that our two programs, athletic departments, have there's just a level of mesh. There's a level of connectedness between the two programs. There just is because the Fertittas, and so there's ties. And so I think the staff is very good. Barry Odom is he's kind of seen as he can do no wrong in Vegas right now. I mean, everybody loves him. He's just seen as the magic man. And Brennan Marion, I think UNLV is kind of hoping we have one of those magical years and Barry Odom gets pried away so that we can just install Brennan Marion long-term at the top of our program. I think that's kind of what we hope happens. But I think that the staff will be willing to adjust to any level of speed or they're very confident. The thing is yes, our quarterback position is off, but our support positions on offense are excellent. Our defensive leader is a stalwart and he's excellent. Jackson Woodard, our best linebacker. So, and he'll kind of glue our defense together. And so I don't see any issue with the Rebels getting into some sort of a gunfight, kind of like a gunslinging thing with Houston. I could see the score being incredibly high between the two teams because, again, our defense is really unproven at this point. So I could see there being a lot of scoring in this game simply because I think Houston's line could push us around a lot. And specifically, Donovan Smith, I love him. What a fun player to watch. He had a play against Texas. I just said, man, this guy's going to be so fun to watch when I was going through his highlights. So I could see a lot of scoring in this game.
I could see it being a fairly high scoring game, actually. And the funny thing is I like some of our improvements we made on defense in the transfer portal and things like that as well. But I think both teams' strength will be in the run game. I want to talk more about the energy that brings in a second. But first, I should probably recommend that if you are also looking for energy, I mentioned I'm a teacher, I'm a coach. Obviously, I'm sitting here hosting a podcast. I'm on Houston Cougars each and every day. I need energy as much as the next guy. When that lunch wall hits, I got to go grab a 5-hour energy. Now, it's an actual scientific fact. Research shows that more than 70% of us hit a wall after lunch, and you can let 5-hour energy help you leap over that wall instead of crashing into a zero sugar. It's convenient, portable size. It's a great pick-me-up for getting stuff done. 5 energy has a bunch of flavors. I like the watermelon, grapey, fruity stuff. They got all kinds of different things going on with 5-hour energy as well. So if you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com. Get some 5-hour energy product today. Use code locked on CFB and receive 20% off your order. Offers only valid through September 30th on one order, cannot be used with other promotions. Code is not good on subscription offers. Again, 5hourenergy.com. Code locked on CFB. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. All right, back with Jason Kelly talking more about the Houston and UNLV football game. So you mentioned these quarterbacks run a lot. Houston's done a lot to improve their linebacking core and secondary in the transfer portal. So much so that it feels like as you go through here, the majority of the starters were not on the roster last year. Both starting linebackers are new to the transfer portal. I guess Latrell McCutcheon, one of the two starting corners, was here last year, but was actually sitting out because he had transferred from USC. The other corner, Johnny Carter, was not here. A lot of new faces in the Houston Cougar defense. Talk to me about the receivers and the pass game that UNLV brings to the table, because you said go offense, the go offense, right? But I guess I wonder, when you talk about how much these quarterbacks run, what kinds of threats are out there on that outside to run the score up?
So this is where UNLV is probably at its strongest. Like, we have a very good running back room, obviously, to support, our quarterbacks who run as well. But and this will come out. I'm a homer. I'm a UNLV guy. I think we have the best receiver. I think we have the best receiver in college football, easily. Ricky White. He was the leading receiver in college football last year, and he's returning this year. I would rather have Ricky White than any other player in the country at the wide receiver position. If you go through his film last year, the guy he could have had he caught for like 1,500 yards, but he could have had way more than that. And he was just always open. He's lightning fast on the outside, and he's got great instincts and unbelievable hands. And so that's part of the problem with the quarterback controversy is we need somebody to get him the ball, because he's our best player. It's not going to be our quarterback who's our best player. It's Ricky White. And so if any Houston, zone defense, man defense, it's all going to be centered around making sure that Ricky White doesn't burn you. I'm sure that's what they're talking about. It's what every team talks about when they play UNLV. And then there's also, but that's not it. I mean, we also have Casey Kane, a transfer from Texas, who we're very confident in. Damian McDaniel, who we really are confident in on the outside. But probably my favorite player is Jacob DeJesus. He is primarily a slot receiver, but he also does like punt returns.
I must say he's the shorter return guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he's lightning fast. I mean, he was our best player. He's the best player on the team last year at several points. And then we also have a pretty good tight end core. Kaleo Balangai. I think I'm saying his name right, but we have a lot of weapons on the team. If I felt good about our quarterback, if Jaden Maeva was coming back, I would feel so good about this team, because we lost our quarterback to USC last year and he's not even starting at USC. It was really dumb of him to leave, but he got that bag, so whatever. I can respect it. Yeah. He's going to do his thing, but there's a lot of great weapons on the outside. Is the quarterback going to be able to get the ball to them? That's going to be the big question for the Rebs.
So Ricky White, you mentioned the yardage on the season. He, for folks at home, he had 88 catches for 1,483 yards, 8 touchdowns on the season last year, and is back at UNLV this year. Listed 6'1", $185. I watched some YouTube stuff on him. Obviously, you watch him a lot closer. He had 7 games of over 100 yards receiving last year, and an 8th that was at 97. I mean, he's very consistent to this one. Like, he had a 250-yard game and just sat down the rest of the season, right? My question to you is, obviously having a great quarterback helped some last year, but is this just raw speed? Is it cuts? Is it moving, running after the catch? What is it that Ricky does that hurts other defenses?
He's very good at punishing lazy defenses. If a guy's sitting back in zone, Ricky is really good at watching kind of the body language, the eyes of a player, and punishing them for lack of attention to detail. He does have world-class kind of speed. I think he's going to be. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I think he'll be a first-round pick in the NFL next year, barring any major injuries. But he's very good at getting behind receivers and almost making you. It's bizarre because everybody would be focused on him, but players constantly kind of forgot about him last year. And I was like, how is Ricky so open? And it was just because he has great instincts at attacking a defense and finding space. And a lot of that also is just like the staff runs really good plays. Like Brendan Marion's a very good offensive coordinator. And I think that it's just a combination of those two things. So he's really the whole package. I mean, I can't even point to one specific aspect, whether it be speed, athleticism. I wouldn't say he's a great leaper. I didn't see him jump through I didn't see him like a Megatron style receiver, but he is just, his speed and his decision-making is excellent. And so he'll get open. It's just if our guys will be able to get him the ball and punish defenses that leave him open. That's the only question.
Again, he had 5 games over 150 yards, 3 games with multiple touchdowns. I mean, he's a real threat if they can find someone to get him the football. Mm-hmm. If we're predicting a high-scoring game, the other side of this is going to be the UNLV defense. As we continue to list names here for Houston Cougar fans to get acquainted with to get ready for the weekend, I should stress that on the viral picture that's going around of the picture of the depth chart, I'm assuming Cooper Webb is 6'2", 300 pounds, not 6'2", 200 pounds as a defensive tackle. 6'2", 200 pounds would be small for the high school team I used to coach. It's going to be really – and so I'm assuming that's a typo. He's 6'2", 300. But outside of that, what would – who sticks out on the defensive side of the ball? Because it could come down to a single stop.
So I would say if you are a Houston – the person to look out for is Jackson Woodard. We've got greatly improved talent, unrefined talent, on the outside in the corner position. But our whole defense is kind of like a funnel to Jackson Woodard. We kind of try and keep running in front of us, limit yardage to like 3 or 4 yards, and let Jackson Woodard, kind of the quarterback of the defense, pick up. I mean, his number, I don't actually remember exactly how many tackles he had last year, but it was one of the highest, number of pure tackles in the country last year. And it's basically a giant funnel to him. That's the goal of the defense. It's pretty conservative. If you've got a good receiver, which isn't Kobe Young, isn't that one of your receivers? Do I have that name right?
Kobe Young is young, no pun intended. He's a freshman. On the 2 deep, Houston also has a number of guys. Joseph Manjack returned from last year. Stephon Boogie Johnson had the Hail Mary that beat West Virginia. And then Jonah Wilson's a redshirt freshman that people in Houston are really excited about as well. It's funny. I would argue Houston's got a pretty strong receiving core. Somewhat ironically, it looks like they're kind of switching to more of a 50-50, maybe even 60-40 run-based offense next year. So we'll see how we get them the ball, but I think the receiver room is pretty strong for Houston.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys could run against us, it'll be very difficult. And we're going to be at our healthiest. So, I mean, we brought in a lot of talent this last year, but again, the UNLV football program, you have to understand, is that we have been barren and destitute forever. And only recently, kind of since we moved into Allegiant Stadium, has the UNLV football program. We play in one of the best stadiums in college football in terms of just like facilities. And only recently have we really, the Fertitas built a practice facility for us out in Vegas. And so our talent level on the defensive end specifically is getting better, but there's some holes there. I'm not going to lie. There's some big opportunities. And if Houston can take advantage of those, it'll be very difficult for us to get stopped. So we'll have to win a high scoring game.
Well, and looking at the depth chart here, it looks like 3 of the 4 starting, I guess the nickel is the 5th, but 3 of the 5 starting DBs are all transfers. As someone around the program more, whether it's Jalen Catalan, Tony Grimes, Malik Chavis, what can you tell us about those guys?
Sure. So there's a lot of talent there. A lot of them, we had some players from Texas. Catalan's a guy that I'm a really big fan of, and Grimes is kind of a prodigal son in my view, a little bit, kind of a journeyman. I wouldn't necessarily call him a journeyman, but he had kind of an interesting path to UNLV. These guys have a lot of talent. I have no idea if they're good or not. I haven't seen them play yet. Their transfers, they've got the physical attributes to really, make things better than they were last year, because our defense was fried chicken by the end of last year. It was terrible. So I really believe in them, but I need to see it first before I can really say that these guys are going to be kind of lockdown players. The one player you can trust is Jackson, but besides him, everything's kind of up in the air at the moment. But there's talent. There's a lot more talent than there used to be in Vegas. That's for sure.
Speaking of that talent, I want to break down the game itself a little bit and make some maybe predictions, talk about what FanDuel says. But first, if you can't wait till the weekend to get into football, you got to go download the newest football video game, Ultimate College Football Head Coach. I got to take a moment to tell you about how much you're going to love this game, because it's amazing. It's got all the simulations. You can step into the shoes of the head coach of the Cougs or the Rebs or whomever and actually build the program from the ground up, from recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps, handling school scholarships. You get to control everything and every detail of your program if you can handle that kind of pressure. Here's why I love the game. You're responsible for calling plays. I'm an offensive guy. Your strategy can not only determine the success of your football season, but can help shape the future and legacy of the program as well. Ultimate College Football Head Coach is completely free, has no ads, is 100% playable offline. You can play on the go as you want and when you want to. And of course, special offer for Locked On Coogs fans. Use code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store, and you receive a free boost to your program. Make sure you take advantage of this perk. It'll get your team off to a strong start. Just visit ultimate-cfb.com or use the name Ultimate College Head Football Coach on app stores to look it up. Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching journey today. Should also mention here that if you're buying that last minute tailgating stuff, maybe getting some swag for Cullen this weekend or whatever, you need to do sandals, sunscreen. Recommend sunscreens, the Texas heat. Make sure you go to Ibotta to get the money back in your pocket afterwards. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn hundreds on items from groceries to beauty supplies, toys, and more. So make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Other apps give you points that don't really amount to much. With Ibotta, you can earn cash back that you can withdraw to your bank account, PayPal, gift cards. Simply add offers in the app, upload your receipt, and voila, the money is yours. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying it by using the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE when you register. Go to the App Store, Google Play Store, and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back at using code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's IBOTTA at the Google Play or App Store using code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. All right, bringing back in Jason Kelly here. Jason, again, I don't want to ask about gambling history because everyone has their comfort level talking about that and those kind of things, right? But as someone who lives in Las Vegas, I would imagine you see lines move a lot. On Sunday, this game opened at a 1.5-point Houston favorite. As we're recording on Monday night, it's a 2.5 favorite. I got to ask, first of all, as a UNLV person, what does that tell you about what the nation's thinking about this game?
Well, I always kind of like when a game's between 1 and 3, I don't really see, personally for me, I don't think it makes that big of a difference in how I feel about a game going into it, based on whether it's going up or down or a lot. But it basically just means people see uncertainty around UNLV football. And I think that that's the reason why the lines moved. There was probably some hope maybe that there would be by the way, Matthew Sluka's our guy kind of moment. And I would think that's the primary reason why. But also, the headlines that I've been reading out of Houston football have been pretty positive. It seems like there's a nice energy around the program. And so I think there's just positive betting momentum towards Houston. And it doesn't surprise me at all. I still think it's kind of a coin flip style game. Maybe 55-45 favoring one team over the other, but it's pretty close, and that it doesn't surprise me too much.
Well, and again, we're talking about less than a field goal, right? So it's not like it's moved a whole heck of a lot, and they're not predicting some sort of a blowout or anything all of a sudden. But it's just interesting to watch the way that tracks for the week and kind of how people are navigating. Because I'm like you. I think if UNLV had came out on Monday and had a real definitive, this dude is our dude, that would have showed almost some confidence that could swing gamblers one way or the other and maybe move that line some. I'm not going to ask, again, other bets and stuff. I do want to talk about the over-under later because that feels low to me. We're talking about shootouts here. In talking about the game and predicting the game itself, UNLV is on the road. Houston is a Big 12 program. It's been about 14 months, but Houston is a Big 12 program. Quarterback battle in Las Vegas. Houston's got a guy returning from last year, but as new coaching staff, what are you seeing as someone who's followed UNLV very closely as the outcome this weekend?
Sure. So I predicted that the Rebels would go 8-4 this year. And one of the 4 losses that I predicted was Houston. I said that this is going to be a tough spot for a team with a lot of uncertainty rolling around it. I think Houston's going to be motivated. You got kind of the new car syndrome a little bit. We saw that with Reno and SMU last week. Sometimes when you have a new coach in there, you have a really motivated team. And so, I'm not saying that I think it's going to be a blowout. I would put the 55-45 probably in favor of the Cougars. But I would pick Houston as of right now. And ultimately, I think the Rebels are going to be very good. So, I know there's some UNLV fans that didn't love me saying that I thought that was going to happen. But 8-4 for this program would be still a great season. And I think that's ultimately where we're going to end up. But it's just going to take a little bit of early growing pains for us to kind of establish ourselves. And so that's kind of where I feel about the way the game's going to go. I could see a game in maybe like the 40s, 44-38, something like that seems, because that over under the point total just seems way too low for me. I think this is going to be a very high scoring game. So that's kind of 44-38. That's kind of what I'm seeing. 37, I don't know exactly, but around that range.
But when you're saying you see UNLV going 8-4 this year, I mean, they play another Big 12 team later this year in Kansas, Syracuse as well, if I'm not mistaken. That's 3 power conference programs, and then whatever we're calling Oregon State later in the. I mean, that's a tough handful of games for just based on difference in resources, right? Obviously, UNLV had a really good year last year. It's looking to build on it. Great coaching staff. I too feel like Houston's going to have some extra momentum and oomph playing their opener at home. Fritz's first game as the head coach. I've been saying like 9 or 10 points. I'm kind of somewhere in there, and I think the reason I'm like closer to 9 than 10 is honestly out of respect for Marion and what they're doing, Marion and Odom and what they're doing at UNLV. But I think there's just going to be too much good mojo going on for UNLV and for Houston in this game for UNLV to have a shot. I really do wonder though about this over-under set at 54.5 in Vegas. Like, what do they know that we don't? As far as like the coordination and the game call, is it they just don't think there's be enough possessions with both teams running the ball more, or what? That is
I
weird,
would say
right?
that they probably think it's going to be clunky. Like first games of the season, a lot of times there's a lot of, especially if like we start a quarterback, especially if Sluka starts. I mean, I don't think he knows the playbook yet. He's had some terrible moments in practice where receivers have been 80 yards to the right, and he's been like confused. So I mean, I just think that that's probably why the line's lower than it is. You have teams that are relatively, UNLV has had a lot of turnover on the defensive end, and so maybe it's just that they're just early season kind of. And instead of resulting in a high-scoring game, it results in a low-scoring game. That happens sometimes in early season games. So that's probably my guess. I can't see another reason why they would assume that it's going to be this low-scoring of a game. Maybe they think Houston is just going to dominate, but I mean, if they did, they'd probably have the line a lot further apart than they did. So it doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
Last question, we'll get you out of here. Obviously, this is a non-conference matchup. Are you predicting at 8-4 another conference championship kind of appearance? As far as UNLV's goals and rebuilding their program, I'll get you out of here on what do you see after this weekend for UNLV?
Yeah, I think that we have a very strong chance to get back to the Mountain West Championship game. I really do. I think there's going to be clarity after this game. I think this Houston game is going to be the splash of cold water that the program needs. I don't think we're going to beat Kansas. I do think we'll beat Syracuse pretty handily. That's a home game. We'll split to Boise and Fresno State, the 2 other top teams in the conference. And I think one conference loss is going to be enough to get us back to the Mountain West Championship game against and a loss to Oregon State. But Oregon State doesn't actually count against your conference record if you lose to them. I don't think we're going to go into Corvallis and win. There's still too much residual talent. But that loss doesn't really count against us if we lose it in terms of a conference race. So that's where I see the Rebels 4 losses coming. We'll split with Fresno and Boise. We'll lose this game. We'll lose to Kansas. And I think that'll be enough to get us back to the Mountain West Championship game, where we'll have to probably face a very good Boise State team.
For a second year in a row. Anyway, good time talking to Jason. Obviously, you're doing all things UNLV, football, basketball, everything. Show's called Let's Run Pod. Where can people find you in that work?
Yeah, if you just go to my Twitter page, Jason K Redline at Jason K Redline, you'll see the link to my pod. It goes up on all the big podcast platforms, but I also just post live versions of it onto Twitter. So if you want to check out, if you're a Houston fan and you want to see what the enemy's saying leading up to the week, which is what I always do, I always find whatever's locked on pod from that school, and I got to listen to it because I got to know, what the other fans are thinking. If you want to come and listen to UNLV sports, I promise we won't be too mean to you. Although we do have some pretty rowdy fans. So find me.
That's part of the fun.
Redline.
That's part of the fun. All right, Jason K.
Thank
Redline
you so much.
On X and Twitter or whatever you want to call it these days. I'm Parker Ainsworth, host of Locked On Coogs. If you're looking for a second listen of the day, Locked On Sports Today is getting ready for all things college football going on each and every day. There's like a bajillion games starting as early as Thursday. So check out Locked On Sports Today. They'll be breaking down the latest over there. Thanks again, Locked On Coogs, Locked On Podcast. I mean, it's your team, our Houston Cougars, every day. Go Coogs.